All right, if everybody's ready. Call the December 8th, 2021 meeting of the Solid Waste District of LaPorte County to order. If everybody please stand for the pledge. Mr. Mayor, if you would lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Matias. Present. Commissioner Haney.
Present.
Mayor Germany.
Present.
Mayor Carey. Commissioner Rosinski. Councilman Mullenhour. Councilman Press-Bliss.
Here.
All right, with that, we should have a quorum. Next is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the minutes have been approved. Next, we have claims for August, September, October, November, and December.
And as usual, we sent those all out to the board for their, other than the December one, we sent those all out to the board in the prior months for your review and recommendations. And then you did sign them into the record today, but they still need to be adopted.
Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims for August through December 2021. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Matias, you have the December ones on your corner there. If you would, at some point during the meeting, sign those and pass them down, please. Thank you.
I also see here on the agenda, we have an approval for end-of-year claims. Do we need a separate motion for that?
We do allow the chairman to sign the end of the year. We'll probably, the week of December 27th, try to wrap up so we don't have to do any encumbrances, try to wrap up what we can. So as long as the board will allow the chairman, we'll also forward them to the board, but there is allow the chairman to sign those again, which was what we normally do every year.
Okay. If it's amenable to the board, we'd entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval for end-of-year claims. All those in favor?
We will, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
we will see them before you sign them.
Before the chairman signs it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to financial reports through November 30th.
As I always point out to the board, our financial statement looks as this colorful one. The numbers in yellow on top, which is our previous cash balance before we paid that December or up to November claim. And then our new cash balance. That new cash balance is $448,417.21. We will be getting our second infusion of our tax money on our new rate, probably towards the end of December, so we will have sufficient funds to carry us through the first 6 months of next year until we get our second, or actually our first installment of 2022 funds. We will need a motion to accept the financial statement.
Sure. Entertain a motion.
I just have to look at them
Sure, yeah.
for a few minutes.
And also included in that, should be stapled to it, is a sheet behind it that shows you, because Commissioner Matias had asked us one time to give us a running balance of each of our 300 accounts so we know what the major expenses were for the month.
And no surprising or increased expenses that I could tell, or?
We've been pretty conservative, knowing that we wanted to see what the new dollars were to get us through this year and then see how we're going to start out next year. And we've been pretty happy. We've been successful with being conservative. Knock on wood that we haven't had anything major happen to our equipment or our facilities.
Recording in progress.
Has there been any talk from Able as far as any increases?
We're still under that 5-year commitment.
Okay.
This is our 3rd year of the 5 year we're wrapping up.
Okay. All right.
There's no talk about them decreasing their fees any.
Could you remind us what professional services covers, the line item?
other professionals, lawsuit litigation, county administration, public access web page development, household hazardous waste, hauling charges, and public compost sites.
Clay, question, and we may have looked at this last month or previously, but the issue with that electronics recycler, where, IDEM came in and they, penalized us and fined us and that. So where do we stand with that? Is that all taken care of now? Is that all, we paid more liability?
Yeah, we paid our fine. We received the letter that says that our penalty has been fined and the site's been cleaned up. We've got a clear bill of, what was the term they used?
Well, it's fully resolved and we've been cleared by IDEM. The district has been.
Okay. So where this guy had all this stuff piled up down here on 421, that's all, it's all gone?
All gone.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and we're currently in the process of going back to try to recoup the expenses that we've had to clean up the site and to pay our fine.
Yep, and so we filed a lawsuit. It's just pending. Within that lawsuit, there's a kind of a twist. I just happen to be the planning commission attorney for the county also. They're cleaning up the site. I want them to get the site cleaned up so that way we know if there's anybody else who has an interest in the lawsuit. So in other words, rather than push the lawsuit, get it concluded, and have somebody file another one, I'm just kind of letting it sit for a little while to see if the county has any charges or has incurred any expenses, okay? Because you have an owner, a lease, and a sublease, okay? And the one guy had criminal charges on top of that. So I'm kind of letting it sit for a couple of months and simmer, so to speak, to see if there's anybody else interested that wants to jump in. I think it'll be more efficient in the long run. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
And that's not interest against us, that's interest against the property owner and PC.
Right, I just learned over the years, if you push one lawsuit too fast and quick to get done, you get pulled into another one, so.
Very good. I'd just like to take a moment to say our technical issues have been resolved with Zoom, and we are now on Zoom, and I see Mayor Perry is with us as well. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thanks. I hope the record shows that I am in attendance because I've been trying since 1:30.
Yeah, and that was a technical issue on our part. There's too many Zoom meetings going on in the county right now for the licenses that we had, so that's why there was some delay there. Our apologies for that. All right, would you like any more time to review this, or everybody good?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Support.
All right, we have a motion to approve the financial reports through November 30th and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, and an aye from Mayor Perry as well. All right, next, are there, and perfect timing with Zoom coming up, are there any members of the public who would like to speak? I don't see anyone here, and I don't see anyone on Zoom. Without seeing any members of the public at all anywhere, I guess we're going to wrap up public comment and move on to the director's report, please.
First item on the director's report is just our year-end totals. And as you can see, there's some empty spots, but we'll get those for you in January. The majority of our categories are out. We've been collecting electrical material. Our HHW collections were very successful this year. The number of households that we serve is increasing every year. In 2020, we had 2,180, and in 2021, we have 2,295 households that we served at our mobile collections. So we'll bring this back again next month. I just wanted to show you what we're doing so far, and we'll fill in the gaps from here. If nobody has any questions, and I'll move on to compost hours. This coming Saturday is going to be our last Saturday for 2021. And then we usually gauge it by the weather. We have an early spring, hopefully we'll get the site opened up earlier. If there's still a lot of snow on the ground and nobody's doing any yard work, then we'll try to extend the closed Saturday hours until maybe like March, April maybe. And just so the elected officials know, our department heads, such as the street department of LaPorte, the county highway, they all have keys to our gate, so they can get in there before hours, after hours, and on the weekends if they ever need to. It's not prohibited to actual, if there's an emergency, a tree falls, they need to get rid of it, they have a place that they can still take it to.
Even after December 11th.
Yes, they're welcome to use our site anytime they need to. And they're familiar with opening the gate, doing what they need to do, and then closing the gate and leaving.
Very good.
Next thing you should have in front of you is our CAC reappointments and new appointee. We have, I believe it's 5 members that's up for reappointment this year. We've contacted them. They've all agreed to serve again for a 2-year time frame. So if the board is willing, I ask that you reappoint the 5 names.
So question, I mean, at least what we've done in the city is look for new members to look at fresh ideas, new ways of doing things. Do we look at new people to serve, or is this more they can serve as long as they want to on this advisory committee, or is it's difficult to find people to serve?
It's a combination. It is difficult to find new people to serve. We do have another young lady that's willing to fill our one empty spot, but we've been trying to fill that spot for 6 months. We've advertised, we've asked you folks to mention to your boards that we're looking for somebody, and there's just not a lot of volunteers out there.
We see that with several of the boards we try and appoint to.
And how do you advertise?
Well, through our social media, we use our Facebook, our webpage, and then we also ask the county to put it on their webpage, and then we run a press release in the local newspaper.
Oh, okay.
And then our educator has a master recyclers program that she runs every year. And so we're always trying to work those folks where, if you're interested enough to be on the master recycling class, why don't you come on and join our advisory commission?
Okay.
And we're down to 9 members on our board, and we've had at one time up to 11. So if you do know some folks, or some folks come forward, there's no problem with getting them on the board. And ours is not political. You can be of any party persuasion. We'd like to have more technical people on our board, but sometimes you just can't get those type of folks.
Thank you, Clay. Whatever the pleasure of the board is, if you want to go through these one by one or approve them as a whole.
I move to approve them as a whole.
Second.
All right. I have a motion, a second to appoint and reappoint the names here. I'll just read them out loud into the record. We have Dick Reel, Justin Peel, Jim Michaels, and Amber Sealier. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Amber Sealier is the new person that wants to join. If you want to do it at the same time, or if you want to do it separate.
Commissioner?
Aye.
The three were reappointments.
3 are reappointment, 1 are... Are you comfortable at encompassing all of it?
We're on right now.
Okay, good.
The whole group.
All right. In that case, we have a motion and a second to approve this group that I just read as a whole. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
And Chairman would at some point before you leave sign those certificates.
Absolutely.
And we'll get them out to the record.
All right, budget update.
And I was going to do this in September, but we didn't have a September meeting, but we did have our public hearing. That was September 27th, held by the county council. There was no public remonstrance at that time at the public hearing. The 30 days between the public hearing and adoption hearing, we still didn't have any remonstrance. We had the adoption hearing on October 25th, and it was passed unanimously by the county council. We also got our 1782 notice from the DLGF that our numbers are approved downstate, so everything is on track to be okay for 2022.
Very good. Do we need a motion to accept that into the record, or no? It's just information. Okay, very good. All right, moving on to old business, the lease for the solid waste district office.
This goes back a little bit too. Back in our July meeting, the board gave me permission to approach the county commissioners about a reduction in our lease for the office space here. I went to them in August at their August 18th meeting. They agreed to hear our recommendation. They assigned a committee of Councilman Mullenhour and Commissioner Haney. The three of us sat down and talked about the lease. The lease is pretty much mirroring what the current lease is. It's a 10-year lease. Currently, we're paying $25,000 a year. The commissioners agreed to allowing us to do it for $100 a year for the 10 years with the 3-year review process. Every 3 years, they come back and review. And that's mainly for the commissioners, then not for my end. I wouldn't take it back to review at $100 a year. They did sign it on September 15th, authorizing that they're okay with the lease. So I just need my board to agree to let our chairman sign it so we can get this back to the commissioner's office in 2022.
Well, thank you, commissioners and council. So I've got a question. So the budget for 2022 was $25,000. Your budget was. So is there a way not to spend those funds? Or what is the purpose of those funds that now you won't be paying towards rent?
As you all know, those are in a certain line item. So in order for me to actually move it from a 300 to a 200 or a 100, I have to have board permission. I myself can move it within the 300 line items if I needed to expend it. We pretty much got the message from you folks, don't spend anything you don't need to spend. You know, we had the directive from this year of what we couldn't spend out of those different line items, and we've been following that. We would do the same thing. I wouldn't try to spend it unless I came back and asked for your permission. And all those unexpended funds just rolled back into our general fund for the following year.
So the money will just sit in that line item
Yes, sir.
minus the $100?
Yes, sir. Now, I will have some comments when it gets down to our salary resolution about maybe that line item.
So in other words, Clay, in order for us to repurpose that money, the board would need to make a motion to move it from that fund, that line, into another fund in order for it to be spent in a different way.
Not in the same, like, it's a 300 account.
Right.
I can move it myself in a 300 account. I can't move it if we want to put it into a 100 account salaries, or if we want to put it into a 400 capital improvement, or even a 200 account. I can't do that without your approval.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, do you see a need to have it moved to a different account number at this time, or we just leave it where it's at?
I would leave it where it's at. And like I said, I do have some comments when we get to the salary resolution that I want to bring up. That's further down under new business.
Okay.
So we can jump ahead and I can answer that question now.
If you don't mind, Chairman,
go right ahead.
might as well
Yeah, go right
address it
ahead.
now.
And you've all been through the same situation we have. We started putting our budget together in July. And we got a little bit mixed because the auditor 2 years ago always did an August and September public hearing, adoption hearing. The current auditor did a September and October. So we had to get our numbers done early in July because we just assumed it was going to still be August and September. So our money was tight, as you well know. We went through a fee increase. We had some limited spending. We thought, we did not foresee these ARC funds at all. We thought it's going to be tough to get a raise for 2022. We budgeted 2%. We've always followed the county's recommendation. The county's given 5%. Now, what our hope is, our insurance came in 7% lower than what we budgeted for. So we do have some extra funds in our 100 account. So we think we can cover, if you say at 2%, that's a no-brainer, it's there, it's budgeted for that. If you agree with what the county has given at the 5%, that's gonna mean we're gonna have to supplement some of those 100 line items. I think I can do that out of my insurance fund without having to transfer any money. We'll have a better picture come October of next year. That's usually when we get the renewal for our insurance. At that point, I might have to come back to you and say, in order to finish paying our salaries, I'm gonna have to transfer a few dollars into our 100 account. Ideal place would be the office lease, because that money's just sitting there. Hasn't been expended, hasn't been promised, and hasn't been committed.
So, did the county use ARP funds for the increases?
The county's ARP funds consideration is coming up at the December 13th council meeting. The raises that, it's my understanding at least, the raises that were done here were not out of, with ARP, at least 5% was not done with ARP backing. That is, though, anticipating that there's going to continue to be another similar increase in income into the county next year, as we've seen for this year. So there, wish Councilman Mullenhour was here, he would have a slightly better idea of what their long-term goals are there.
Okay,
So we should consider approving the lease at this point. If there's the chair would entertain a motion on the lease itself of the building here for solid waste.
yeah,
I'll second that.
yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the lease for the solid waste office. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about the lease and getting it knocked down from $25,000 to $100, right, a year? Okay, that I just want to commend the board for when we went through the whole financial study for the, increase and all that, that we brought that up and we pushed it and it actually got done. So we're saving the county some money there. We're saving Clay some money and running a business like we should be. I mean, why should we be paying for lease back to the county when, this whole thing kind of works together? So I just want to say, I commend all the board members for pushing in that direction. And thank you, Clay, for going forward with it.
I second that, and thanks to the commissioners that are sitting here and the council
Yeah.
members for it, because we know that's, whether small or large, 24,900 is still 24,900.
It is. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, we put in, all of us put in a tremendous amount of work this year on the budget here for all of it and getting this done. So I'm pretty pleased with that. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. New business. Let's consider the 2022 holiday schedule.
These are reflective of what the county has for 2022. We adopt usually what the county runs. There's 13 holidays here. That's what we had in 2021, is 13 holidays. There's no increase or no decrease.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2022 holiday schedule. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, excellent. Moving on. Next we have District Citizens Advisory Committee Board Meeting Schedule. We have that in front of us here to consider. So 2022 district board meetings would be January 12th, April 13th, which is a joint meeting with Citizens Advisory Committee, July 20th, September 14th, another joint meeting with the Citizens Advisory Committee, and then December 14th for our district board meetings for next year. And then the Citizens Advisory Committee dates listed here, and these are all 1:30 p.m. Times. Tuesday, January 18th, Wednesday, April 13th, Tuesday, July 12th, and Wednesday, September 14th.
They're all the second Wednesday, except for the July one, which gets pushed back to the third Wednesday because of Fair Week.
Move to pass.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2022 district board meetings and the Citizens Advisory Committee for next year. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, one
Yes.
question though, as we look at the Citizens Advisory Committee, we take, because maybe it was because of COVID, but I don't remember any members in attendance with us, and I don't know if we keep attendance, track attendance of the advisory committee, but I think it's something we need to look at, that we need citizen participation, and if they're not able or willing to participate, maybe we should reconsider their appointment at some point.
Right, it was basically COVID because of the size of our room and the quantity of the number of people that would have been attending if everybody would have showed up. And of course, we did not have our September meeting, so that automatically canceled the second citizen advisory meeting. But the first one was on track, but COVID just, we thought it was unsafe to have that many people in this small room.
I do recall last April, there were a few members that did attend via Zoom. I know Justin Keel and I want to say Dick Reel for sure were there. I can't remember who else, but those off the top of my head stick out because they both made a comment. I don't remember in relation to what they stick out in my mind right now.
Attendance with that also.
Good. I just want to make sure they're incentivized to show up and, they're an important part of this, so.
Yeah. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. So, this is I've served on this board when I was mayor of Michigan City previous, and I remember talking to some of those members who participated, and they often felt like they didn't really have a role to play, that they kind of just showed up and they listened, which, any citizen can do. So I wonder, do we have any tasks that we can interest them in? Is there any way that we can add some zip, some life, some energy to that group? Because they're donating their time, and it seems just to listen to a meeting is probably not, it doesn't keep them engaged, and I think that's why we don't have a lot of people wanting to do this, because it's, there's
No purpose.
Listening to a meeting and maybe chiming in, they could do that as a citizen. So if they're volunteering their time as an advisory member, they're interested in our work and our mission, is there a way that we could brainstorm some ideas on how to engage them and make them feel like they have a role to play in our community?
And you're right on point with that comment. They have felt that way. We switched it up a little bit. We made Sasha, our educator, the new CAC coordinator instead of myself, because I was just basically doing a board report of what you folks instructed me to do. A few years ago, when the state changed the way we do our budget and sent it to the county council, we used to take our budget to the CAC for their review and recommendation, and it's just a moot point because, what you guys say doesn't really hold a lot of, with the county. If they have their mind made up, they're gonna do what they wanna do, whether you make recommendation or not. So it kind of took that step away, but we are working on trying to get them more involved. Years ago, like when you and I were both back on the board, Commissioner, that we had money, we had landfill money, so we could do some projects, we could assign them something, but now it's just getting harder and harder. Even to come up with a match, if you're trying to do a grant, to have them help do some research on a grant, it's just...
But now we should, with the increase in fees, we shouldn't be just getting by, correct? I mean, we should start generating some revenue for projects.
That's what we're hoping to get. I'm sorry,
I project like another year and a half before we really kind of can relax a little, but it'll get better every distribution.
Even volunteering at some of our education events or Saturday community events, perhaps there's some way that we can make them feel that the time that they're offering to the community is time well used.
And as well as, I always invite you folks out to our HHW. We invite them too.
Yeah.
It's, people's schedules are tight.
Yeah, I understand. Just wanted to throw that.
And we're trying. Sasha's going to do a good job of trying to get them organized. She's a mover and shaker, so she'll get them hustling out there.
Excellent. We had a motion and a second for that. We were in discussion. Is there any further discussion? No? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion. The meeting schedule is carried. Next is consideration of the salary resolution.
Like we mentioned earlier, budget-wise, we put in for 2%. We just thought money was tight. The county came back and gave a 5%. We normally follow what the county does. I believe there's going to be sufficient funds there to pay a 5% increase. If not, like I said, we do have that little cushion now with the lease fund having some dollars sitting there. Just the one year that we always just put in 5% for advertising purposes, but something that confused the county council. They kept thinking I was asking for a 5% increase, and it's like, no, that's, back in my day, you used to be able to raise everything 5% by state rules, and then you You can cut it, can't raise it, you can cut it. We've reached out to the DLGF and the State Board of Accounts about this scenario, because we advertise for 2%. They basically go by what your salary resolution is. So whatever you vote on today is what they'll check when they come in to do our audit. As long as there's no increase in my bottom line on my budget, we don't have to go back to the county council for an additional appropriation. We don't have to ask the DLGF for additional appropriation. We can just keep right on going through the year. I believe our budget has sufficient funds in it to pay the difference between the 2% and the 5%.
Question, how much is this gonna cost?
I don't know if we actually did the total math. I mean, give you a rough idea here.
I'd like to know exactly how much this is gonna cost.
I can tell you the additional to raise it to 5 is like 11,000, roughly, to add to our already existing salary ordinance.
Right.
So the increase at 2% was $8,313. As Lynn said, it'd be another 11,000 for the additional 3%. So that brings it up to a little bit under 20,000.
So the current, I guess this would be at the salary resolution is based on the 2%.
There should be two of them in front.
Should be there, yeah.
2% and 5%.
Yeah, one's 2 and one's 5,
Okay,
if you were
I
close to.
apologize.
Just so you can see the numbers.
So the 2022 for executive director at 72, that page is for the 2%.
This is where it gets a little bit interesting. At the 2%, I didn't ask for an increase. That's my 2021 wage. At the 5%, I put in for a 3% raise. So actually, if you went to the next one down, like the controller, those are all at the 2%.
Okay.
And then the 5% one is mine at 3 and the rest of them at 5.
So the 11, you already have the 8,000 prepared for the 2022 for the 2% increase, but if you were to go to 5%, you believe those dollars to pay for the 5% would come out of?
Would still come out of a 100 account, would come out of our insurance. There was enough of a gap there because I anticipated our insurance to go up like it normally does, like an 8%, and it did not. It actually dropped, which was surprising, but.
And that 2022 number is the same as our 2020 number. We didn't raise it in 20, we didn't raise it in 21, and we haven't raised it in 22. So we think we can get by with the raise without actually affecting any of those accounts as far back as 2020. Actually, we lowered it. It was 150,000, we went down to 145,000.
The insurance.
The insurance line item.
Okay, so then, you're gonna take, we need $11,000 more,
Correct.
okay. And that's coming out of the lease.
That's, no,
the 100
right now,
account insurance.
it's coming out of the insurance.
It's
Our
gonna come out of the
line item
insurance.
is also a 100. You can move a 100 to a 100.
Okay, so it's gonna come out of the insurance money, because your premiums weren't as high as you thought.
That's correct.
All right, so that 25,000 is still gonna be intact.
Yes.
All right, okay.
I would just, and maybe it's becoming jaded from a year of budgets that we've all gone through in our own county or city. I think we made great, as a board, great strides to keep solid waste afloat, to keep them going and do the necessary things. I mean, I'm okay with an increase if it comes out of the 100. I would be opposed if it came out of the rent, because right there, I mean,
It's our buffer.
yeah, we just made strides. And to just go ahead and spend that, I would be opposed to that. If you can do it out of the 100, equal to what the county did, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And that 101 is the only account that has any type of a cushion in it, because like I said, we do our budget in July, not even knowing what our increase is until October. That's when our insurance premiums come in due. We were fortunate it went down, but all those other 100 accounts like PERF, FICA,
I keep those pretty
Medicare,
good.
those are all, we know what those are based
So
on.
Clay, are you using the county insurance carrier, so you can be part of our?
No, because like I said, we're quasi-state agency, so we're not using that. We just never really approached them, I guess.
Okay, so that's another opportunity for perhaps savings, the more people you have in a cohort for insurance. So I would suggest that you look at that for next year.
Do you know if you started our insurance?
Our open enrollment just closed for this year.
When you started doing your negotiating?
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask if either of you could forward over to me who your insurance carrier is and some of the information with that for us to consider, because you guys may have one of the only insurance carriers in the nation that actually dropped rates this year. Most carriers around the country went up about 20%. We were able to drop ours down to the county to 4.5%, which was really good, but for you guys to...
It was surprising.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
Just based on the Affordable Care Act, is that, there's a pocket of participants and they have to maintain that dollars. So it's like the last 3 years, our policy has changed every year. It's gotten a little bit worse, but it's always reduced.
I just would have to believe with the amount of lives the county covers, and I think you have quality insurance, that it might be a benefit to the employees to be a part of that.
It might be. The trade-off, of course, would be to get, like you said, sounds like there's some coverage dropping that's going along to keep those rates from going up. So you may find going the other way, you may find a increase in coverage with maybe not that big of an increase in premium or no increase in premium, depending on where you're at, where those final numbers shake out. So
I did see, because I'm on the department heads, I get the same thing Barb sent out. Our premiums are a little bit less than what you guys pay per employee contribution.
But the quality of plan might be better.
plan may not, yeah.
I'll forward that information to you.
Yeah, it'd be good to compare and contrast those and know, so.
But you feel comfortable you can pay the increases out of the 100, not including rent?
Yes, yes. Mhm. I mean, it's, I'm still in shock. I'm still like recovering from before, but yes, technically, yes.
Technically, yes. So just to be, so it looks like with about the 11 over the 8, that puts us at about 19,000 for the year increase, going with 5%, right? And will you have that 19% in that, or not 19%, 19,000 in that?
Yeah, don't hold me to a specific number, but I'm pretty sure that I calculated out that we had an extra like 26,000 in that insurance fund, so it was within the range with a little bit left. It wasn't like to the penny.
Okay, all right, yeah.
That would help cover maybe an increase for the next year, and then looking to a different provider would also help that situation.
Mr. President, may I make a motion to pass the resolution that includes the 2022 salary of executive director? I guess the way to appoint is the $74,339 per year, and all funds paid for by the increase out of the 100 fund, and not including the rental savings from the county. Is that it? I don't know if that's a real resolution or not.
It sounds like one to me.
So at the 5% rate.
Correct. Yes, at the 5%
Yeah,
rate.
I think that was the one item you mentioned.
I second that.
I would second, yeah, go ahead.
All right, we have a motion and a second for that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. That moves us onto our last item here. Consider additional training and continuing education options. Attorney DG, I had asked for you to come up with some options we may be able to look into.
Yep, I took looked at a couple of different programs. The county HR already has a program that they use at the jail when they hire employees. Dress code's a little antiquated, but other than that, I previewed it. I think it covers everything we need to. There are 2 DVDs. They cover handouts. I recommend, and I borrowed the DVDs from Bart Mossman. I think it would be productive to stay, if that's what the board wants to do, stay consistent with what the county's presenting. They're up to date, and so if that's where you want to go, I would recommend this program that Barb's given to.
All right, very
We
good.
can be more clear, is this for onboarding employees or is this for management training?
It's not for management training, it's sexual harassment, bullying in the workplace. And it gives scenarios, little vignettes, and what the parameters, acceptable parameters are, what's not acceptable. There's a training module for management. I'm not sure that really applies here because that's for more of a multi-level management organization. But I think it covers the bases we need to cover as an employer, so that the employees know what the proper thresholds are, and if they're crossed, what they should do and how they should handle.
Do we have a complaint system in place here so that folks understand if they have an issue, they know what their steps are?
We do. Goes to management.
We basically adopted the personnel policy from the county. We just changed some of the terminology because we don't have departments. We basically want a department. But there is a grievance procedure, there's a discipline procedure, and there's a training procedure, all adopted from the county.
So for like sexual harassment type purposes, what does an employee do?
Normally, in such a weird situation is that, we're a little bit separate. We're not a county agency, we're a quasi-state agency. So if one of the county employees sexually harasses one of my employees, the procedure should be my employee should come to me and say, hey, I've been harassed. And then I will try to solve that situation. If I can't solve it, then she would take it to the board president. If the board president couldn't solve it, then we would take it to your HR person and have them what do they do to their county employee? I can't discipline a county employee. I can just do the steps and make sure that everything's followed.
Okay, what if it's two employees that work here,
And they come to me.
sexual harassment, one against the other, and they want to file a complaint? Do they come talk to you about it?
Right, and then I'll try to
Do
make
you
sure.
report it to anybody, or are you the end of the line?
No, you guys are the end of the line.
Okay.
If they're not happy with my resolution,
Right.
then they can take it to you folks.
Okay,
But are we notified of it? If you solve the issue, are we notified either way?
No, I try to keep it all in-house.
Because if it's a sexual harassment, I would hate to not know about something that's happening, even if you felt like you resolved it, or whoever felt like they resolved it.
Well, it's always one of those I can feel like I resolved it, but this disgruntled employee, they're gonna either call you up on the phone or talk to you at an event or something. It's gonna get back to you one way or the other if they're not happy with my resolution.
I almost feel like HR at the county or something has to be,
It's got to stay within this entity. And you can look at it this way, Clay's the manager, and if they're dissatisfied with this resolution, then they have the right to appeal to the board.
And
And
if I'm the one creating the hostile environment, then they automatically go to the board president. I don't even get a chance to review it.
In the policies and procedures, the employee currently has the option to go to either the director or the board president. One of the things that I was mulling over, and commissioners are aware of this at the county level, was possibly holding an executive session. The issue seems to have been resolved on the county level. But possibly holding an executive session just to bring the board up to speed. At the same time, it's the county level issue has been resolved and taken care of, so that situation won't be presenting itself again. For our legal counsel, do you think a executive session would be warranted in this to discuss a specific personnel issue? But because it's odd because it is a personnel issue that would be on the county side. It's a difficult position to be in to speak on in a public meeting because of personnel issues being involved in HR issues, so.
Well, I'm not sure there's any action for this board to take. If the county's resolved the issue, then I suppose the question would be, was the complaining employee satisfied with that action? And if they are, there's no action to take. If the complaining employee is not content with the resolution the county reached, then I think it would be necessary to have a board meeting to decide if solid waste district would want to take any action against the county.
I have a question.
On the employee's behalf, I should say.
The way ours reads, nowhere in there does it really define what HR's role is in that. And I think that's a miss. I think somewhere in there it has to state, whether it's just that they come to me after him, come to me before him, come to me with him. I think it's a miss that that's not stated in there anywhere what HR's role is in that situation.
Well, we can certainly clarify the language.
I think
HR's role.
I think that is a problem. So let's say, worst case scenario, not using this particular situation, but let's say the executive director has a pattern of ongoing thing. And he's resolving or she's resolving it, and it doesn't ever come level up to us, and you're looped out.
I feel looped out.
Well, that's not a good checks and balance situation for an employee who feels unsafe. We need to protect those folks, and saying there's no sexual tolerance for sexual harassment, and actually building a system that will protect folks in all various scenarios is something that I think we need to work on, because this situation is not, while it might be an anomaly about this particular person and this particular person, county employees are in and out of this building all the time. We work very closely with you call it a quasi-state agency. Well, you're a quasi-state agency, but you live in the county, your money comes from the county folks, so you're kind of, in our eyes, you're kind of county. So I think we need to make sure that there's systems in place that protect your employees, because what happened here, they did not feel protected. And I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of it, but I know enough to say that I'm alarmed, and I don't think we need to have anything happening. And so we should see this as a teachable moment and build some systems in place so that our employees, no matter which building they work in, which agency they work for, they feel that they have a process that they clearly understand, and that you have a checks and balance to protect you as well. So that would be my...
And for me, it's not a personal request. I just think this is something that's...
It's a system. We need a system.
Forever. It needs to have some voice, so...
Yeah.
Good point.
Agreed.
Good point.
Well, I can make some edits to the manual to make sure that HR is included in the process. Like solid waste HR is included in the process. And maybe add some also language that if the complaining employee is not satisfied, that they can appeal to the court.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent.
In a non-public manner, because it's a sensitive subject, so that would...
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to say, and I agree with Mayor Dermody, is that if there is a complaint that comes to the director, and whether it gets resolved or doesn't get resolved, myself being a board member, I still want to know what's going on. I don't want to hear about it later when a lawsuit's coming down the road, the employee's not satisfied, because that's not the way, in my mind, to do business. Let the board members know, so we know how this operation is going here, and keep everything checks and balances, as Commissioner Matias said, yeah. So I would like to see Attorney Beige, put some type of procedure together on how Mr. Turner is going to report to the board in the future when these things happen, in resolution form, ordinance form, or whatever the form.
Excellent. Can we consider that a motion then?
Sure.
I support that.
I have a motion and a second to...
I'd like a tighter motion.
Tighter motion?
Yeah, if we're talking about future board action, let's make sure, just tighten your motion up, basically.
Okay, I will type my motion up. I make the motion that if a employee goes to the director with a complaint dealing with whether it be, all the different harassment activities there are, religious harassment, sexual harassment, racial harassment, what have you, that if it's reported to the director, whether he resolves the issue or not, the board is to be made aware of it.
Okay.
As a motion.
And HR is included?
HR is included in
And
that.
social harassment.
And that HR will be looped in on
Yes, and
every,
then HR is included in it. Yes,
In the-
right off the bat.
in the
HR.
system, in this systemic way of managing this.
All right.
And then bring that back to this board for approval.
Yes,
In our HR policy.
yep.
Excellent.
And social harassment.
And social
Yeah.
harassment, yeah.
Well,
I saw the harassment.
I'll take a look at the book, because I think we need better definitions. And sexual preference is a good example.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not really safeguarded under the law right now, although I believe most local governments wish to do so. The tricky one is bullying, defining bullying. So let me try to get some language that the board can look at to make sure this is the conduct you want to protect, because you may or may not wish to protect there's a line somewhere for some things. So let me work something up so you can take a look at it and make a board determination as to what type of conduct's to be protected. Okay?
Perfect.
And I make the recommendation that you also somehow reference it back to the county's personnel policy so that we're both having the same language and both having the same rules that we're following. So it's not that ours is more or less restrictive than the county's is.
Okay,
Okay.
Perfect.
Does your second still stand?
Yes.
Or
Commissioner
okay.
Matias seconded.
Sorry. Okay, very good. Any further discussion? In that case, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, very good. And then do we need a motion, or can we just, for now, continue with the educational that we have?
Well,
that you have?
I've got the information available. If the board wants to directly to have the employees engage in the education process, then I can turn these over to Clay and they can continue. But I think the board should direct. That's what you want to do.
Mr. President, I move that we direct the executive director to add additional training similar to what the county uses and make sure that the employees are trained in the DVDs that were presented from HR.
Second.
For all employees, including director as well, correct?
Yes, all employees.
Excellent. All right. Any further discussion?
I just have one question. This by mostly, does this be done as like we all sit in here and do it together, or does that have to be done separately?
No, you can do it together. One DVD, okay. So my office no longer possesses the ability to burn a DVD. So these are kind of old. But one DVD has 5 different choices on the type. 2 are directed to management. I don't think you want to mess with those. And then the one DVD has handouts.
Okay, so we can set a training session and get right over all 8 of us together and
Yep.
get it done, have them sign off on
Is
it.
that
It takes less than an hour.
annually? Will it be annual training or just a one-time?
For new employees or?
Well, I think the way the county does it, I know the jail does it this way. I borrow these from the jail because they play these for all new jailers. So maybe one-time shot on this and then this is played, if we can copy these things, and then play for all new employees. And Barb was looking into something very similar but with newer technology. I think the
Yeah.
message is all the same.
I just have one other question. Do you know, are you aware, I can obviously find out myself, but in there, the forms, like when I pass out benefit summaries, I have a letter where I have employees sign so I can acknowledge they did that, or internal controls, they sign a form where they acknowledge they witnessed that video. Would I not also do that for this?
Sure,
So that we
yeah.
know if your problem arises, you watched this video, you were instructed on what's your behavior.
Sure.
Okay, all right, that'd be great.
So that begs the question about ongoing training. So if an employee's been here for, 20 years, they had training 20 years ago, and things have changed. So I would suggest that as part of your responsibility is to seek there's a lot of free resources online. Obviously filter it and make sure it's appropriate. But, a lot of the universities have training that you can just download, so that there's some sort of ongoing training for
Okay.
employees. I would suggest that as an action step.
All right.
All right, very good. We have the motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. All right, that brings us to the end of any other new business. That brings us to the end of our agenda.
I just have one thing for for Mr. Turner. Can you send your employees over to Michigan City maybe once a week to clean up around the box? I mean, the litter, broken glass, things like that. Can they come over there and clean up around there? Or once that box is there, whose responsibility is it to keep it neat and tidy? I mean, I don't expect it to look like somebody's front yard, but at least come and pick the garbage up, because you know how messy they can get, how they look. I don't know how the one is over here in LaPorte, but over at Caitlin's in Michigan City, to me, it's rather embarrassing at times.
Yeah, we don't have any in LaPorte anymore because of...
Pardon?
We don't have any in LaPorte anymore because of that.
Oh, okay, all right.
But it's in our contract that if there's any trash left outside the container, that Republic Services will pick that up, and then they bill us back per ton for how much trash they pick up. So they must not be completing their task.
Well, I'm saying, you know, just general litter that's left. I mean, they don't go around, they'll pick up large items that are left outside the box that can't get in the box anymore. But I'm just talking the litter that accumulates over time and from things that are left there.
And I've sent our guys over there, you know, when you called and informed me that there's a mess, but
I know, can we put them on a schedule? That's what I'm asking.
it's just a one-man operation. I can try and see if it fits in. He's in Michigan City a couple times a week, pick up batteries to check the...
There you go. I mean, when he does that, all he's got to do is go by Caitlin's and Clay, I guarantee you, it'll take 5 minutes to do what he's got to do. Then he can go get a cup of coffee and come back.
Don't say that, but our biggest problem is the glass. We have no way to get glass picked up. So we've contacted the street department over there, and they've come up a couple times, and you've contacted them for us.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we'll send a sweeper over there and pick the glass up and things like that.
I think when you're trying to broom that big of an area, it's just hard for one thing.
All I'm asking is to pick up the debris.
Okay.
Okay? I don't expect them to pick up every little piece of glass, but, okay, appreciate it.
And now, so now I gotta ask, we don't have, I didn't realize that we don't have one in LaPorte. Is that based on, how I understand there may have been some problems in the past, but is that also because we're close here? Or is there one that's needed in LaPorte?
It's based on, and I tell you, I'll be totally honest with the board, I'm not a big fan of public access dumpsters. They're just a magnet for trash and vandalism and for everything that can go wrong. When I had the opportunity, we used to have two over on Brighton Street, but when that property sold, the new owner said, you know, we don't really want your containers here. I said, hey, not a problem. And it's just tough to find a new site that somebody's willing to put up with that. And as, you know, Don and I have talked several times, it's got to be in a kind of a public place where vandals can't go back there and make mischief without nobody seeing it. So
Well, we have enough businesses with cameras, so I mean, if you find that, I'd certainly love to see, our code enforcement has been putting the hammer down pretty well, so if it makes sense and it helps the residents, we'd sure love to be partners in it with you, and we'll make sure it stays clean.
And I mean, like I mentioned to you before, I'll pick up your recycling right at your house, curbside. Set it out front, we'll come and get it. Put extra stuff out, our guy will take it, you know. If you instruct me to do it, I'll do what I can, but I'll turn it back to you. If you find a location that, you know, some owner's willing to have it set in there, that he might end up with a couch and lumber and all kinds of other stuff set.
Sure, fair enough.
And you gotta also remember, it's $200 a dump for each time you dump that 30-yard container. This year it's 200, I think next year it goes up to 200 and whatever 4% more of 200 is.
Very good.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas.
everybody.